a quiz show, and they had different contestants, and they would, the MC, you're making fun of me, aren't you? Yeah. And the MC would ask them questions and everything, and this woman came from Pittsburgh, and he said, "Oh, Pittsburgh, that's a wonderful city." And she said, "Oh yes, over 90% of the people in Pittsburgh have gas."
Please welcome Tom Welling, John Glover, and Laura Vandervoort. Yeah. Keep it up.
Are you gonna go?
Yeah, I was pulling it out for you.
Aw, there you go.
That's what he said.
She's gonna be the meat.
Okay, here we go. The last panel of the day. You know it's going to get
Don't
crazy.
tell anybody I said that.
Hi.
Look at this woman back here. She's like, I got the entrance on my TikTok. I'm out. Like she's leaving. Where are you going?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So
Where's John
just
going?
real quick, sorry, I don't want to jump on you. One of my new favorite things is to watch people at
Do you need something?
Well, I feel like a little boy like this.
You want to sit over there where the table is not?
Okay, and you're just going to straddle it.
No, that's
Can
not
we get a
gonna
cushion?
I mean, this could be very interesting, there's a crack is a crack is a crack. You all have
There we
Question,
go.
please.
filthy-minded.
Now I feel like a little person.
Sorry, what were you saying, Tom?
Well, I was just, it's funny, I was just down in Ecuador last weekend, and there was a lot of people in the panel, and it was funny to watch. When you walk out, everybody goes, ah, and then slowly over time, the arms get tired, and by the end of the panel, no one's recording anything. It's like, that's when you really want to drop your bomb.
Yeah.
So I have just like a general question or two before we get started. Then we're going to take questions from the audience. We only have a half hour.
Okay.
So I just want to, real quick, how did you guys get into acting? We'll start with that. Just something more of a generic level. How did you guys get into acting?
How'd you get into acting?
How'd you get into acting?
How did I get into acting? I was in high school, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. They had those future clubs, the future farmers, and the future this is, and the future that is, and I had no, and
You were rudderless.
Yeah, I had no rudders. And then there was a junior class play that I read for. I thought I did a pretty good job, but they didn't hire me. But I changed the scenery. We did it in the cafeteria, and it was Lilium that was based on the carousel. And so I played the guy that didn't have a part, but I changed the scenery. And I got all in black, and I got a derby hat and everything. And by the last performance, I did not say a word ever, but I was getting more laughs than the people. There was something from the way I
Nothing's
was doing
changed.
it. Who said that? Okay. You're right.
You're funny, John.
But I found my power there, because I could make people laugh, and they liked me better. And my dad was a traveling salesman. They called him a joke-a-hole. He was a golfer, and for every hole, he had a different joke. So he was joke-a-hole Glover. And they took me out to caddy for them, And I'd never been on a golf course before. I know that the golf looked very boring. But they all teed off, and we start walking, and I see their balls, and I run up ahead, and I pick up the balls and bring them back to my parents and handed it to them. And
like
the
a puppy.
looks on their faces, it was like, this is not our son. So I never went on a golf course again. So for you golfers, tough titty. Can I say things like that here?
Sure.
It's Pittsburgh.
If it gets
Pittsburgh.
I think you're okay.
Oh, I got a Pittsburgh story. When I was a little boy, there was a record called Pardon. But this is a story about Pittsburgh. It is about Pittsburgh. There was a quiz show, and they had different contestants, and they would, the MC. You're making fun of me, aren't you? Yeah. And the MC would ask them questions and everything. And this woman came from Pittsburgh, and he said, "Oh, Pittsburgh, that's a wonderful city." And she said, "Oh yes, over 90% of the people in Pittsburgh have gas." Now,
Show of hands at the moment.
now, I thought it was pretty funny, and to tell it here in Pittsburgh, but if you have no sense of humor about yourselves, I mean, go away. All right. All right. Never mind. Go on with the... Yeah. Okay. I came on a red eye last night.
Caught that.
You arrived on a last night.
I don't know what I did last night, but I'm tired. But I'm having fun.
How did I?
Yeah.
So I,
Thank you.
poor little old me. I had sort of stumbled into this world of modeling, and I wasn't very good at it because even though I was much skinnier at the time, I was just too tall. My feet were too big. My hands were too big. So I kind of used it as a way of traveling and having a good time. But that led me, more importantly, to commercial work, which then more importantly led me to an agent who dealt with theatrical performance, like television and this and that. And that's how I got into it. But as a child, I remember some of my favorite childhood memories is pretending I was sick, which wasn't easy. So I didn't have to go to school because my mom would go to like the Blockbuster and get me like 5 James Bond movies. And I would sit there and watch movies all day. And I still remember being like, and so I really don't know if I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I wanted to be in those things. And that carried on going forward. And I was very fortunate to get Smallville pretty quickly and showing up and having the least amount of experiences like anyone. But I had people to look to for guidance and help. And it was a really warm environment on Smallville. I mean, I'm sure, not to speak for you, but it was one of those things where like everyone was there to support everybody all the time. And not in like a cheesy way. Yeah. It was like, hey, like I'd have bad days. Rosenbaum would be pissed off most of the time. Somebody didn't know their lines and it was like, let's do this. Let's make it better. Let's make it better. And that was the crew. That was the cast. It was something special about Smallville. It was always about making it better. And I think that tone, that heart came through in the show, which is why we were able to last so long, because you guys watched it. So thank you. Laura.
Was Smallville your first audition? Did I hear that? Or
No, I died on a show in one episode. I don't remember the name of the show. And then I did a 6-episode arc on a show called Judging Amy.
Oh, yeah.
And then while I was finishing that, I had gone on the Smallville casting. And I remember talking to Amy Brenneman. She's like, hey, what's cool? Because she was fantastic. And a lot of what I did on Smallville, as far as how I felt I wanted to operate with the crew and the cast, was because of the way she did. She was just a beautiful person that really inspired everyone around her, but not in like a cheesy way, like in an authentic way. Anyway, and I remember talking to her about it. She's like, well, what's the role? What's the show? And I'm like, nobody really knew what it was yet. And she was just really, I remember her being like, you should really follow up on this. Because I was like, I don't know if I want to do it or not. And she could have said, who do you think you are? You don't even really have a job. You should take it. But she encouraged me to follow up on it, and that helped me sort of be a little more confident in what I wanted out of my initial conversations with Alan Miles and the writers and this and that. I mean, they hated me. I had like 40 questions that I said, before I do this final reading, can I sit down with you guys and ask you some questions? And they were like, who do you think you are? And I went into this room, and there was one seat and 13 chairs in a circle. And I've watched enough like CIA movies. You know what I mean? I'm like, I see what y'all are doing. And I literally was that kid. I opened up this binder and I go, question 1.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I went down and they were like, I don't remember what the question. One was about like, are the villains gonna be this or this or that? And then, but really it was an audition, and then it was I had one audition, and then I met with David Nutter, and then I went back in, and it was a studio network a chemistry reading, and Kristen was already cast. And so her back was to the room, and it was me, and it was like a room maybe a quarter this size with just about as many people in the room. Like there were people sitting on like the air conditioning units. It was like a big deal. And I just remember being like, I can't pay attention to any of that. I'm just going to pay attention to this person I just met named Kristen. sorry, this is a long-winded answer, but she did something very beautiful, which also helped me going forward in my career with other actors, is there was one point, it was a cemetery scene, and her back is to the room, but I'm talking to Kristen. Sorry, this is very long-winded. But she's facing me, and there's a point where she says a line, I don't remember what line it was, and I went blank. Like, I didn't know what my line was. And I'm looking at her, and she's beautiful, she's easy to look at. I'm just looking at her, and she mouthed to me the beginning of my next line.
Really?
And she didn't move her body, she didn't make a big deal, she just kind of like, and it clicked. And then we carried on, and everyone in the room thought I was such a good actor because I took a moment.
Took a long emotional pause.
And we had a bond at that point after that. And one of the things about Smallville I like is seeing you guys and pretty much everybody on the show. There's a bond that you get when you act with someone. There's a trust, there's a support thing that it's really hard to replicate outside of that environment. So I'm gonna shut up now.
That's a damn good answer.
Sorry.
That is a damn good answer. Laura, how did you get started?
I started when I was 12. I had been watching
15 years ago.
Bless you. I've been acting for 27 years. Do I have gas? Pittsburgh gas?
I mean, I did smell a little thing, but I just wanted to get out of the way so they could see you better.
Oh, that's nice of you.
She is like a fine wine. She gets better and better with age. It's just amazing.
And John's not a lawyer.
I don't want anything in return.
Not a lawyer or a liar.
What?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I love him. So it's been 27 years. And I had seen that movie, My Girl. You guys remember that? Anna Klumsky and Macaulay Culkin. And that was the pivotal movie because I was that age watching it. And that was the first time I realized, like, oh, this is something that people my age can do. And it was the first time I cried in a movie. And I related to her. And I asked my parents if I could try to do that. And they said no. Because we only knew like child actors in the news that like had issues. And my parents didn't want anything to do with that.
Right.
But I wore them down, and they let me. I started off doing background work, and then commercials, and then I auditioned for Goosebumps. I booked my first speaking job on Goosebumps. I did 3 Goosebumps, and then 1 Are You Afraid of the Dark, and then started doing Disney movies. And then my first series was Instant Star. And the 3rd season of Instant Star auditioned for Smallville. I did a self-tape and then didn't hear anything. And then like 3 months later got a call, you need to be in LA tomorrow. Got on a plane. Yeah. But it's like that. And it was like I was testing, there were 3 other girls up for the job. And they had us all in the same room, which is very awkward. And as a Canadian, I'm like, hello, what's your name? Like, I wanted to talk to everybody and make everyone feel comfortable. And one by one, they took us in. And when we were all done, they came into the room where we were all sitting and told everyone to go home and then told me to stay. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And got the job the next day. And then a week later was in Vancouver flying in my costume, and it was like so fast.
That reminds me of something. That final thing that I did, that final test that I did with Kristen, where she helped me out. I had a similar experience where they put me in a room with this really handsome guy who I had seen.
So a mirror.
Get out. I had pulled into the parking lot and I saw this dude get out of like the coolest black SUV, and he was like handsome, and I was like, dude, I wonder who that guy is, but okay, I gotta focus. And I go into this room and they're like, okay, Tom, over here, and David Nutter's there. He's like, yeah, come in here. The other actor's here who's also testing with you. I walk in and it's this dude. And I'm like, I'm never getting this role. This guy's handsome. I saw his truck outside. He's like legit. And him and I were talking. I'll tell you the name in a second. And we're talking to each, and I'm like, hey man. He's like, hey man. Or he probably said hi to me first because he's confident. And, they come in and they were like, They go, do you? I'm gonna let you guys decide who wants to go first. And I'm looking at this dude who I don't know, who I'm totally intimidated by. And he goes, do you want to? I'm like, go for it. He goes, I'll go. So he goes in, does his test. So now I'm waiting longer, and I'm like, maybe I should have gone first because then I wouldn't have to wait. And I know all these crazy things go through your head if it's, a job interview, basically. Then he comes out and he goes, hey, man, have a good one, fist bump, and he walks away. And then I go in, back to that story about Kristen. And that was Jensen Ackles. And it was him and I. He later come on Smallville. We're good buddies now. I obviously played his grandfather on Winchester's. I can say that because it was in the past, yeah. But I remember being like, I'm never going to get this. Yeah. Because he was like a real dude. Like, he had been on soap operas and stuff. Like, he knew how to act. But he did all right. I don't feel sorry for him.
I think you both did all right. I think you're both good.
Yeah.
Jensen's okay.
And you did all right, Tom, too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So do you think that since it filmed like in Vancouver had a different feel to it as far as like more of a laid back production, kind of away from the whole studio system?
I didn't know any better. It was like really my first job. So you guys had much more experience than I did.
I think anything in Canada feels a little more laid back than if you were shooting in the States or in Los Angeles specifically. I was stressed the F out the first season I was there, though, so I can't say much. I was so nervous to be a part of the show.
It didn't read, by the way. Like working, or you wouldn't know it. But she talks about it now where she's
I was literally shaking in my boots, like Supergirl boots. Because I was a fan, and like working with this cast was like if you guys were to work with this guy, you'd be intimidated.
That's how I felt about all of you guys.
But then you just wore your boxers in scenes, and it was like, oh.
All right, so here's what happened.
Continuously he did that, yeah.
Here's what happened. We didn't have air conditioning. We shot, so the like, where the Kent barn is, the interior, and the kitchen and all that. Anything you saw inside was filmed in the Burnaby soundstage, which was not a soundstage. It was an old meat packing thing.
I thought it was cheese.
Could have been.
I
thought it was meat.
I think it was cheese.
And so it was either really hot. Actually, it was only ever hot. It was never cold. So anytime you're watching Smallville and you do not see me from the waist down, I am probably wearing shorts and Birkenstocks. Because I sweat very easily. Only on my face, not even on the rest of my body. And it's not like a stinky sweat, it's just a visual sweat.
Superman can't sweat.
And Superman can't sweat.
There you go.
And we would be in scenes where all of a sudden, and it was never nice. You'd be in a scene, I'd be talking to Lana, or I'd be talking to somebody, and you'd hear, God, he's sweating. And I'd be like, what? And they're like, wipe him down. And I'm like, oh, damn it. So I would have ice packs in the back of my shorts. Oh, yeah. Everything to cool myself down.
But it's like also stressful to think about not sweating.
Yes.
So it
Yeah,
stresses
there
you
you go.
out
There you
more.
go.
Yeah. So like poor me and whatnot, but that's where they weren't boxers. I wore shorts.
You always correct me on that.
Yeah,
Shorts,
saying.
like
Thank you.
basketball
It
shorts.
wasn't like, because with boxers sometimes things can fall out. You gotta have that second layer.
He's
That
always
would've
like
made me a
that.
different kind of nervous.
Hinting.
So anyhow, let's get to questions over there.
Tom.
Thank you guys. Let's head over there. You guys are good with water? Let's
Yes.
take care of some
Hi,
questions. No,
sorry.
we're great.
All right. I'll keep my answers shorter.
Hello.
No.
So I
So
had
lucky. I'm just gonna say, lucky tonight.
ask him, right?
Yeah.
Ask my boyfriend.
Her boyfriend came to the table. He goes, I'm getting this for my girlfriend. She's out here somewhere, but I'm getting this for her. I'm like, oh, so you're gonna get lucky tonight? And he goes, oh. So I was gonna write on the thing, lucky tonight. And then later they came to the table. She's like, yes, he will get lucky tonight. So there you go.
Very big fan.
You're welcome, sir.
He's out there waiting. I loved that you had your Smallville nights. I had a blast at Philly Fan Expo. It was amazing. I'm wondering when you are going to have these two in your Smallville nights.
John has appeared.
John,
has
I
appeared.
missed that one.
Yeah. One of the
Me and Laura were talking about it. I'm going to write a strong worded letter to Rosenbaum.
Unless we bring you in to play Lana. Kristen
Are you going by seasons? Like what?
No, we have like a couple. I can't tell you what we do, but it's a couple of scenes that we run with the fans, and then the fans come up and run it with us, and it is a lot of fun. It's like
I got you, Laura. You're going to get in there. Don't worry.
But
I don't need it. Whatever, man.
A couple months ago, Kristen showed up and played Lana, and it was funny because you guys know, Kristen was like, "This is ridiculous," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's why it's fun." Like,
I wouldn't know. I've never been invited.
We'll have to add a scene with Laura. But one of the things we do is there's no cameras, no phones, and we have people like watching. And the reason is because some of you who've been there multiple times, Michael and I are allowed to be like ridiculous. And I think it's kind of fun. And a lot of times he tells me to tone back my language. He's actually a lot more calmer than I am, but he's funnier. So, yeah.
All right, ready for next question?
Well, I hope to see you soon, though.
Well, thank you. Rhode Island.
Thank
Yeah. Yeah. You can do it there, DC.
So Don, 2 years ago in West Virginia, I met you at Mountaineer Con. And a question for all of you: what was your favorite scene to film in all of Smallville?
Ooh.
Thank you for the question. Favorite scene?
The first thing that comes to mind is in the pilot when Clark rips off the door and says, I'm Clark Kent and you're in Smallville, because I remember trying to figure out how I'm going to say it, and I told myself, say it like James Bond. It was like, Bond, James Bond. No, I didn't say Clark. Yeah, I didn't say Kent, Clark Kent. But that attitude, I just remember really feeling like I was owning that moment as a performer. And I remember like they moved on, and I'm kind of in myself, I'm like, oh, dude, you killed that. Like, good job. That was awesome. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Mine was one that frightened me. It was when Clark and I changed bodies,
Transference.
because he had his strength is his stillness, to let the camera just watch him thinking. So, but I got all these little tricks and everything, and it was terrible for me to stand still. I kept wanting to add stuff. I didn't trust that I was enough to do what he was doing. But I was so jealous of the way he just got me. Yeah. But
Thank
people
you.
say that we succeeded. But it was the hardest. And then there was one second one is when I saved Martha. She was in the water, and I had to do the puzzles and stuff. And they let me do a lot of my own stunts with that, like run beside trains and things like that. So I was in seventh heaven. Yep.
I would probably say the moment I realized I was playing a superhero. I stood up on the water tower. It was, I think, the first episode. It was the very ending. Kelly Clarkson was playing. It felt so epic.
Kelly Clarkson was it Smallville?
Kelly Clarkson, no, we had one of her songs.
Oh, okay.
That would have been cool, though. That was the moment that I realized what was happening. And then there was a scene underwater where I appear, and just shooting that was pretty cool as well. Kind of that when I save Lex from the car. But there's a lot of was he in a lot of car accidents on this show?
The only thing he did more than car accidents was getting hit in the head.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Getting what in the head?
Getting hit in the head. Lex was getting hit over the head almost like...
I thought he's in
all
the
the
head
time.
again. Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
You're welcome.
Good job, Batman.
Hello. I'll make this as brief as I can, okay? So back in April, I met Kristen Crook. I asked her this question, and she told me that if you ever meet Tom Welling, ask him that. The question is this: whenever Clark Kent is exposed to kryptonite, how come he cannot feel it when it's, say, covered or hidden by clothing until it is exposed?
Did you just... She just... Right there in the front row, she just snorted. She went like that.
Have you never thought about that
something
before?
we don't.
There's...
Okay.
You didn't hear that. No.
Yeah, it's a piece of cloth. Like, why does that protect you?
I'm so sorry.
No, because we do this rewatch podcast, and a couple of things I've seen that, and like you can't question it all. It's like we make jokes about Lex's security being horrible, like people just come in and out, and like all these other things, and this is the suspension of disbelief has to be. But you're absolutely right. But the show must go on. Yeah. Like sometimes you're on set and it's like the time's running out and they're like, oh, and they're like, well, that doesn't. Never mind. Let's just go.
Plot armor.
Yeah.
Everyone wore lead-impregnated clothing.
There you go. All right, next question, please.
Oh, is that what
I had a question for all of you. What's your favorite role?
Of all the things you've done.
Of all the slimy villains I've played,
Yes.
it's hard to choose because I've had some humdingers. Yeah.
It's hard to choose. I mean, John, I loved your role in that Woody Allen movie where you were just like a wallflower with.
Touch my heart with your foot. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one. It's easier for actors to choose other actors because sometimes as an actor you're not allowed to really feel favorites or even feel good about what you did. It's hard to judge because one of the other things you do as a character or as an actor is you can't judge your character. Otherwise you can't perform it, So I don't know. I mean, I always say that my favorite episode is Transference, which is the one John talked about where we switched. And I am incredibly proud of what we both accomplished in that episode. So if you want to say it's Clark Kent, or I might say when I played Lionel Luthor. That's a good way I didn't even do that on purpose. That was good. I'm going to say that next time.
Favorite character?
What?
Is there a favorite character you ever played?
You mean
In your career?
Oh, well, I was a great villain in 52 Pickup with Anne Margaret, and I've touched every part of Anne Margaret there is to touch.
God
from
bless
that
you.
movie.
God bless
Yes.
you.
Yeah. And then Teddy in Fear the Walking Dead was one of the slimiest, horrible people ever. I loved him. I mean, he was so much fun to play. What else?
I only asked for one. Just to let you off the hook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Played a lot of them.
I think it's tough because favorite could mean many things, right? Because it's different experiences. If it's the set, it's the crew, it's the cast, it's the location, it's everything.
Timing of your career.
Yeah, where you're at in life. And so, yeah, it's hard to pick. I mean, as much as I love being a part of this show, one of my favorite characters was Elena in Bitten. We did 3 seasons in that show, and I felt very close to her. It was a great experience. Yeah.
I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is the 3 of us are here because of Smallville. I mean, that allows us into this genre and able to do the cons and stuff. So, I mean, yeah. But it's hard to say favorite. It might sound weird, sorry, but...
Everyone is different, and it's always a challenge to create somebody new. I'm most comfortable when I'm being somebody else.
Yeah.
It's when I just love to be somebody else and not me.
Well, we love when you're you.
Aww.
We love when you're you.
Oh, thank you. She's sweet. See how sweet she is?
We got about 5 minutes. Let's get 2 quick. Can we finish the lineup and get 2 quick questions in?
Hey there. So in season 4, you had a room full of college wrestlers bouncing off of walls when Boulevard of Broken Dreams went into the reverb, and we tried to illegally download it immediately.
Wait, this happened in the episode, or this is what you were doing?
When you're in the locker room, you had a room full of college wrestlers in Lindenwood University watching the episode, and when it went into that reverb, we all
He was in the
erupted.
locker room.
Oh, I thought you were in the locker room.
I was in a dorm room.
I was
You
like,
were in
I
a
don't
locker room.
remember that episode. A bunch of wrestlers.
I was in a dorm room. You were in a locker room. We were
confusing.
watching the scene.
Okay.
We all then went to try to illegally download it because that's what you did in 2005. And then you mentioned the Kelly Clarkson song. Were there scenes that you saw, or how did it work when the songs got introduced on the final cut? Did you know the songs as they were getting introduced? Did you know that in the scene?
No, there was a joke that there's a scene in one of the episodes in season 2 where Lex is destroying his office, and when the show aired, it was like this metal like music. And on the podcast we were talking, Michael's like, "That's worse music. Why was it even playing?" And one of the fans wrote in and they were like, "Is that music playing during the scene?" And it's like, no, good question, but no, you don't know what the music's going to be till later. And when I directed some episodes, we would do a cut without music, and then you come back the next day and they overlay the music, and boy, the moments get better with the right music. But you don't know. I don't even think I've ever thought in a scene, I wonder what music they're going to play during this. Because you don't know.
No, you just play it.
Yeah.
Like you believe.
When you were directing, did you have ideas of what music you'd want as the creator, like the visual creator? Because that, like, you're setting the tone before you shot anything.
The answer is no. Because they have people who do that. You know what I mean? Because the access to music comes from licensing and it's money and different tiers. Like when you get a U2 song, that's a whole nother money level than when you get a song that you've never heard before. It's one of those things where you kind of leave that to the professionals, in my mind. Like they know what they're doing, so.
Yeah, when I directed an indie, because I had to create everything from scratch anyway, I knew what sound I wanted for my film. That's and cool. It was just basically like Edward Scissorhands soundtrack. And so I just found a composer that could like legally do as close to that as possible. But I start with a title and music before anything.
That's a great way to start your tone.
Because it's a,
That's smart. I'm going to steal that.
Okay.
Cool. Got time for one more question. Last question.
Osama in the house.
Hi. So this is a question for Laura.
That's his name, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
So I've been watching the Canadian show Heartland. I was wondering, do you know the cast of Heartland, like Amber Marshall, and have you seen it?
Nope.
Kyle, wind it down with one more question.
But thank you.
Thank you.
That show's been on for forever.
Kyle, you have a closing question?
Well, I've been asking this of a lot of people. What was there on the set? Because things will go wrong, obviously. Was there a particular moment that sticks out in your mind that something went wrong and it was just so hard to work through it? Either giggle fit or just, I can see by Tom's expression he's got something in mind. So. Well,
I was there every day all the time, so I saw more than anybody. No, not that I wanted to be there all the time, but there were a couple times where things went wrong, and I had someone say to me when they gave me advice that once you get to set, even things that are wrong, you have to see as good things. Like, okay, this, maybe the actor doesn't know his lines, maybe the prop doesn't work, maybe something's late. You have to be a mentality of, okay, that's great, now what? And you have to just stay in that mode, because otherwise there are so many things go wrong all the time. And it's your definition of wrong that needs to be adjusted when you're on set, because it is a controlled environment. Everyone endeavors for some version of how they all think it's going to go. Inevitably, it turns out to be something creative that's not there.
Attitude.
Oh, sorry.
It just made me laugh.
Your jaw was tight. Rough night?
Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude.
How do you think I got the gig? Sorry, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I do remember things going wrong, especially as a director, because you're made aware of all these things, and you really just have to say, okay, all right, so what do we do now? What do we do now? And you keep it moving forward. Everything has to be positive, because it's very easy to slip into negativity.
Sorry, the question was did anything give us the giggles?
Yeah, or just in any of the roles you've had, just a time that sticks out in your mind where things were going wrong and you had to overcome.
I think Michael led the giggles thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but you remember that differently than I do.
As we do.
I would say when I passed out in the harness because it was cutting off my arteries.
Oh my God. Yeah. I told her.
No, you didn't.
The way I remember it is we were up in this harness that I'd been in before, and I had this awesome stunt double who really went out of his way to make sure that I was aware of things and how to stand up for myself, because a lot of times somebody puts you 40 feet in the air, now they're working on the camera, and they believe it or not, they forget you're up there. And in those harnesses, it cuts off your circulation and you can pass out. And you try to fight through it because you don't want to complain, and next thing you know, you're passed out. And I'd gotten familiar with the signs of it, where we'd go up there and I'd be up there and the camera's ready. I'm like, put me down, and they'd put me straight down. And of course, everybody's like, oh, we were just ready. I'm like, yeah, but I've been up there and I'm going to pass out, and that's not going to work, and blah blah blah. And the way I remember it is Laura and I were in harnesses up in the air, and I think I remember telling trying to give her this advice. And she's like, yeah, no problem, no problem. And I look over and she's like,
No. No. You're remembering something that I don't remember at all. Maybe because I was passed out.
Your Honor, she was unconscious.
Things you don't want Tom to say.
There you go.
Yeah, can you guys edit that?
We will.
Yeah.
We good?
Are we good?
Yeah.
We're better than good.
We're awesome.
Yeah, we're awesome.
Awesome.
Round of applause. Let's give it up. Smallville
Thank
panel.
Thank you.
You can do better than that. That was killer. Tom Welling, John Glover, Laura Vandervoort.
This is John Glover, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Lionel Luthor recommends it. Have some fun. Follow your fandom.